What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Thanks again for stopping by. Appreciate it. It's today. Today's the day. We've done it. We're here. We're going to cover the last 10 tips that enthusiasts should follow for a much better, cleaner install of your ceramic coatings. So I'm going to break the video up into 3 different stages. We're going to do before, during and after application. And then at the end there will be one singular money cannot buy, golden nugget, I should not tell you, super special secret tip. So stick around to the end or your install will immediately fail if you do not watch that very last tip. So starting at the start, we're going to cover 3 things that I believe you should do before application to make sure that you do not have problems during application. Alright, so this is very simplistic, very obvious. Some of you may have switched off already thinking that this is going to be one of those videos. This is a problem that I see happen all the time. All these things are totally avoidable if you just get your stuff together beforehand. Not some of your stuff, all of your stuff. Once we start, we're going nowhere till the job is done. And there's so many things that can happen during an install that require you to immediately be able to grab fresh gear. Think about it logically. You're applying maybe to a door, you drop your applicator, you're in the middle of a panel, you need to either A, quickly swap out the applicator for a new one to carry on, or B, be able to remove that, grab an applicator real quick and then carry on. But what you don't want to have to do is go to the van, go to the car, go to the customer, heaven forbid, try and go to your supplier in the middle of an install. Maybe you're buffing off some coating, you're on your initial leveling stage. Excuse me, you drop the cloth, you immediately need to be able to grab another cloth and carry on. You cannot leave half leveled coating in the middle or the edge of a panel while you go and get some extra gear. Once we start, we're going nowhere till the job is done. So get everything out that you might possibly need. Everything that you need, everything that you might need in replacement of those things, extra things like inspection torches, extra batteries, chargers, everything, every little bit of equipment, get it out, get it prepared, put it in a box, have it to hand. And then if any issues arise, you can deal with them immediately. So historically, we used to apply coatings with a micro suede cloth or piece of micro suede cloth. The old Asian way was to have a big micro suede cloth, fold it into, let's say, quarters, hold it in your hand, pour lots of product over, no blocks, no applicators, just a suede cloth, micro suede cloth folded, and apply it with quite a big surface area over the panel. We moved then to the other extreme where we were historically using makeup applicators, small little makeup removal applicators. Both of those are perfectly fine and both of those will get the job done. My preferred method and my recommended method is to use microfiber. Suede is fine, makeup applicators are fine. In my opinion, microfiber trumps all. Why? Many reasons. If your application environment is anything less than perfect, which, let's be honest, most of us are not working in hermetically sealed environments like a body shop, a paint shop booth with extraction. Realistically, a detailing studio should be clean, but not everybody is in a detailing studio. Some people are on a driveway, some people are in a garage. The likelihood of a small piece of debris landing on a panel is pretty high. If you're using something that doesn't have any pile at all, like a micro suede cloth, any debris, even the tiniest piece of dust on the softest of paints, is going to trap that debris and create marring and or scratching. If you use microfiber, be that dedicated microfiber applicators, dedicated microfiber pieces that you can buy, or you cut up your own cloths, whatever that may be, a short pile piece of microfiber gives just a little bit of room for any debris that might fall on it, any debris that might collect, to not create a problem. And as soon as you recognise that it's happened, you can just discard it and replace it with the equipment that we have already prepared for. But the fact that you have just a little bit of give, just a little bit of forgiveness, some leeway, it will pay dividends. And it's not just a dirt and debris thing. Depending on the coating that you are applying and the amount that you are putting on your applicator, the flatter and truer the surface that you are using for application, the more friction is built up. I'm not saying that this is always a problem or will be a problem, but I have noticed this with certain coatings. If you use microfiber though, because it's little hairy fingers rather than a very, very, very flat true surface, you kind of break that surface tension, so those coatings apply a lot smoother with less friction. They're a lot less grabby, less grabbiness, less chance of creating marring, less chance of it grabbing and falling out of your hand. You're dropping it, you're going to have to replace it, you're going to have to apply extra product. It's just a much smoother, easier install, I find 99% of the time, with microfiber, again, over suede. And then finally for this section, less is not more with ceramic coatings. More is more. It's an inconvenient truth, but it behooves you to not be tight at this stage. So take into account the fact that you might be applying a little bit more than you expected to the applicator. Why do I recommend this? So it might be contrary to initial common sense, but the more that you apply to a panel, and this is especially true for the trickier coatings, the easier removal is. Common sense would probably tell you the less you put on, the less there is to buff off, so the less trouble you're going to cause yourself. You have to remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to lay down a finite amount of a solid, a glass coating. That glass is being held in a liquid state by solvents. The more you apply to your applicator, the more you put on the panel, the less quick it's going to cure before you remove it with your cloths. The less quickly it cures, the more time you have, the less grabby it is going to be, the less damage you're going to cause trying to get it off the panel. This is especially true at times when it's quite warm, or perhaps it's quite humid. Temperature and humidity make a massive difference to how fast a ceramic coating cures. Times like this, again, it's perhaps contrary to what you initially assumed. More product, perhaps smaller working area, everything stays wetter for longer, gives you more time to remove, makes removal easier and creates less damage along the way during removal. So get your shit together, ideally use Mag fibre, not suede. Don't be tight. Less is not more. Sometimes more is more. Okay, some tips for during application now. Tip 1, we call a puddle line. You can call it what you want, and it doesn't have to be a line. But what I mean by a puddle line is when I'm applying certainly the more aggressive, faster coatings, I tend to draw a line out roughly across my work area, and then I will work in the opposite direction, essentially spreading out that line that I've applied. I'm not going to go too big of a work area because then that line is probably curing, but what I am laying down is an area from which I can spread the product. Like I say, it doesn't have to be a line. It could be an X, it could be an S. You could maybe roughly cover your work area in one direction and then finish up the other way, north, south, east to west and so on. However you do it is going to be dependent really on the speed with which the coating cures and the size of the area that you're trying to work. But if you can just give yourself some product from which you can spread out, again, think about what we're trying to do. We're trying to lay down a finite layer of solids across a panel, and ideally we want it to be we want it to be as thick as possible, even though it's almost immeasurable, and we want it to be as even as possible. If we just apply to our applicator, start at one side and work across, the area from which we start is going to be a lot thicker on the panel than it is where we finish. You might argue it's irrelevant and it doesn't matter, and you'd probably be right. But we are trying to put down as thick and even layer as humanly possible, and the best way I have found to do that is with some form of a puddle line.
You know, he's grown up obviously with me fighting. Yeah. He's kind of grown up with me, but that was really like one of his first live events, like since he was very little. And he got to meet GSP. Wow. He got to meet Bruce yeah, he got to meet Bruce Buffer. Yeah.
Now this is something that you will see on a lot of videos. I don't think it's a lack of knowledge or misunderstanding. I think it's just because people have a certain amount of time to fill within a video. You are applying a ceramic coating, you are not working a ceramic coating. It is not a polish, it is not an abrasive, there is nothing to break down. All you want to do is spread as thick and even of a layer over a panel as you possibly can. And to do that, you want to not overwork it. There are many problems with overworking it. You're perhaps going to spread too little product eventually over the panel, which is not good. As the coating is curing, the more you're spreading it, you're essentially spreading curing coating over less cured coating, trapping that, making it harder for you to buff, meaning you've now got to work harder and scrub harder, which is not what you want to do. It should be your absolute goal to work towards as even and thick of a film over the panel as possible, and in an ideal world, regardless of whether you are working with a product that flashes and rainbows or the type of product that sweats, leaving little beads, you should be working towards, when you have finished applying it and before you buff it, the most even looking film that you can produce. If it looks better on, it will look better off.
And so I was surprised to see that she kept doing that. But yeah, there's some good stuff to take away from that fight.
So the last tip for during application is something that we have covered in one of the previous videos as well. If you haven't watched those videos, I highly recommend you stop now, watch them and perhaps come back. But it is to manage your bottles and your applicators. During application, depending on the aggressiveness of the ceramic coating, your applicators and spent product that is on the neck and the lid of the bottle is curing. It will behoove you to replace your applicator, even if your applicator doesn't seem to be going crispy, is perfectly clean, you don't think it's picked up any debris or contaminants over the time. It does behoove you to swap that out every now and again. It does depend on the coat, it's totally coating dependent. I have some coatings here, say for example Titan Coatings Vulcan. I will be replacing the applicator after every panel. You may only need 2 or 3 per car, but it is best practice to swap them out every now and again just to be sure. It's also best practice to look after the bottle. If you continuously pour liquid out and then screw the lid back on, you are slowly but surely trapping product in the thread of the bottle and the thread of the cap. As that cures, you're going to get little shards of solids being left on the bottle, which will make their way onto the applicator. So I showed you my way to put a stopper in the top of the bottle, and I constantly use an old cloth to wipe the neck after application, so I'm never building up spent product on that, and it's never going to make its way onto the applicator. If you haven't figured it out yet, cleanliness is next to godliness when applying ceramic coatings. And lastly, this is really a cost-saving exercise, but it's also an exercise in keeping functionality of your ceramic coating, and that is to try to reduce evaporation during application. If you leave the opening of the bottle exposed, the solvents are slowly evaporating from inside the bottle. Again, what are we doing? We are applying a finite amount of solids to the car, and those solids are being held in a liquid state inside the bottle. And that is simply being done by chemistry. There are solvents and other things inside of that bottle that are holding that solid in a liquid state. The more those solvents evaporate, the more those things disappear from the bottle. You've got less and less and less product to put on, so cost-saving exercise. But also the product that's left is going to become more and more and more tricky to apply, and potentially less and less functional on the car because it's already curing before you put it on. Figure out a way to keep your applicators as clean as possible and do swap them out. Absolutely figure out the best way for your arrangement and your situation to keep the bottle, the neck, the lid as clean as possible. And I highly recommend that you find some form of stopper, again, watch my previous videos, that you can apply into that bottle to stop evaporation and keep the products that are in there more functional for longer. Okay, so look, I said before, during and after. Really what I meant was in preparation, application and removal, but before, during, after just sounds better. Removal is where the rubber meets the road. I think removal is where most people have the biggest insecurities and have the potential to make the biggest mistakes. So you could argue that these are the most important tips. Very simplistic again, but the penalties for getting this wrong are enormous. So I of course recommend you follow all of my steps, but I would say that these are potentially the most important and will yield the most gains. They will be the most beneficial for new and relatively new users. So tip 1 for removal is to use a 3-cloth removal system. 2 cloths are perfectly adequate. I am not disputing that. But a 3-wipe system is optimal, so it makes sense to me to follow a 3-cloth protocol, okay? So what I highly recommend you do is that you have 2. I use the Costco cloths, nothing wrong with them. I don't use them to maintain cars, I just use them one and done for removals, they go in the bin. 2 short nap microfiber cloths, Costco cloths, perfectly fine. And then we're going to follow that with a nice plush cloth. This is an insurance cloth to pick up anything that we may have left from the other 2 cloths. So we have cloth 1 for the initial wipe. You are not trying to remove all the coating, the bulk of the coating. You are using this cloth to make sure that you have levelled your work area to a nice, thin, even film. Don't worry that there is product still on the panel. This will pick up 50% or more in an ideal world, but we're not chasing it. We're going to use this initial cloth to cover our work area, pick up what we can, leave what's left, it's not a problem, pick up what we can, but make sure that we leave a nice, even, wiped film. Once we've used the first cloth, we're going to follow with the second cloth, and we're going to try and pick up 90% or more of what was on the panel. In an ideal world, 100%, but we're going to try and get close to 100% without chasing, without rushing, without stressing. The first cloth is the grunt cloth. It's the one that does the bulk of the work, the grunt of the work, the hard part. That's the cloth we're going to be swapping frequently. This cloth is going to follow up and get us to a point where we should be absolutely happy, but we're close to being absolutely happy. And then lastly, we follow with the plush cloth to make, apologies about that. Lastly, plush cloth, 100%, 110%, perfection. Every cloth is important in their own way. So if you follow that system of the hard work, the grunt, the bulk of the remaining, or all of the remaining, extra, extra, doubly sure, crystal clean, perfection, I guarantee you will not have high spots left on the panel that you've worked on, smears, or any of those things that you are probably worrying about. And remember, let's say we are working on a wing, hard work, the grunt, we're going to get most of that off. On the wing, we follow up with that second cloth. This cloth is also we're smart people, remember. We don't leave things in the way, so we've lifted the bonnet up, we're doing the wing, we've lifted the bonnet up, the bonnet is out of the way now. We're not going to spread product onto it. But this cloth that follows for the second wipes on the wing, we are also going to just catch the front of the bumper where we may have pushed some residue to, and to the door as well that we may have pushed some residue onto. We'll give those a wipe with this as well, just to make sure that we're not pushing high spots elsewhere that we're going to miss. And then when we follow up with this cloth, we'll go a little bit further onto both of those adjacent panels as well. We know the wing is perfect. We know we've not caused any damage or left any residue on the adjacent panels as well. 2 cloths is fine. You could, in theory, and I keep going backwards and forwards here, you could in theory use 1 cloth and use both sides, okay? Again, you can do that, no problem, that's fine. There are some inherent problems with that. So I'll make this easier. This is a brand new cloth. I will just fold this out so we're having a label on one side. Let's say we're using the label side for our initial removal. So we're going to wipe over the panel and then we'll turn that cloth over and we will do the second wipe with the second side. This initial side, we are constantly going to be handling it. Everything we touch, every time we pick something else up, we are now transferring product to those things, which is less than ideal. And also, if you fold a cloth into quarters, it has 4 sides, right? But if you use 1 cloth and you use both those sides, unless you're some kind of origami expert, once this side with the label, once that side is clogged, you're then going to turn it inside and out and use 2 fresh sides. The reality is you've got 4 sides to it, but you've only really used 2 of them. So you've only really used half of the cloth. If we use 3 cloths, once this side gets clogged, that side now becomes my primary side. I'm still following up with this one. Once this gets clogged, this side becomes my primary side, and again, once that's clogged, that's it. So I fill all 4 quarters of that cloth as my primary cloth with product. That goes in the bin. I'm now halving the amount of cloths, hopefully, that I need to use. And I can't state this fact enough. It sounds wasteful, but you don't want to overuse your cloths for removal, your applicators. You don't want to overuse them because it becomes less than optimal. You end up leaving a lot of stuff behind. You end up having to chase yourself, and that's when accidents happen. We're trying to figure out ways to use as much product as required or more, but without being wasteful. So this is one way you can reduce the amount of cloths that you use and increase the functionality and the success that you have with them. So 3 cloths, don't mess about, just do it. So tip 1 was a long one, I admit it, I apologise. Tip 2 is don't chase. The benefit of having 3 cloths is you don't have to chase. If you've not applied ceramic coatings before, or you haven't applied many, maybe it's not your own car, maybe you're doing it to a friend's car, family car, maybe this is the first time you're applying to a customer's car. Panic can set in and anxiety crushes performance. We all know that, boys, right? Don't panic, don't chase. Methodically remove the residue. Don't try and get it all off in one go. Don't rush, don't be quick. Methodically remove, follow the manufacturer's always follow the manufacturer or rebrand, resell, relabel. Always follow their instructions with regards to timing. Adjust them yourself as required. But don't panic and don't chase. Just tap it in. Tap it in. Tap, tap, tap-a-loo. Tap it in. Just tap it in. Nice gentle wipe. 2nd cloth. Follow up. 3rd cloth. Perfection. No drama. No stress. Remember, we eat an apple a bite at a time. We coat a car in the same way, a bite at a time. Don't panic, don't stress. So I would say this one is equally as important, and it may just be a turn of phrase to you, but that turn of phrase, that changing of the wording, makes a whole heap of difference. And that is, don't scrub, but level. Even if you're working with a very aggressive, tacky on removal coating, again I will reference Vulcan, or perhaps you've tried Max Protect UNCR. There are many products that are quite grabby on removal. If you scrub at them, they just become more grabby, more awkward, and you will create damage. There is no two ways about it. You will create damage, and that will be exponentially worse on sensitive finishes. Okay, so like a black Tesla, for example, some Porsche paint, very, very sensitive. In a bad mood, breathe the wrong way, look at it the wrong way, it's just going to mark up. As we said before, you are trying to lay down a thin, smooth layer of solids, and you're not going to achieve that if you're furiously scrubbing different amounts of pressure, different volume of wipes. You're going to remove more in certain places than you will from others. You eat an apple a bite at a time, you apply and remove a coating in the same way. You're leveling, you're not scrubbing. Gentle wipes with another cloth, gently buff it up with a third cloth. You have to think of the coating on like a microscopic level. Everything feels smooth with a microfiber cloth, right? But if you can imagine it under a microscope, the smoother and flatter the layer of solids that you lay down, the better the water behaviour is going to be, and everybody loves a bit of beading. The thicker the product is going to be, the better it is going to perform with dirt retention and dirt release. And these are all the reasons that we're doing it in the first place, right? It sounds very, very simple. It's just a word. But if we level, not scrub, the finished product will be infinitely better. So that's 3 plus 3 plus 3, before, during, after, preparation, application, removal, however you want to say it. Time for that super secret, money can't buy, you will fail unless you follow this final bonus super tip. I think it is the most important tip that I can give you. Your coating will not work unless you adhere to this strict rule. And it is this. Please use PPE, your health is important. Don't stop watching the video. I know it's boring. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. But your health is really, really, really important. This is non-negotiable. If you're watching my videos, please, please, just trust me and do it, okay? Non-negotiable. Nitrile gloves, something that you can wear that will stop saturation of those solvents through your skin. I don't want to hear the excuses. Don't care if a product is classed as safe or VOC free. It doesn't matter. This is the one time that you are going to be potentially in a confined room with a load of really, really nasty chemicals, and that is ultimately, that is what they are. It doesn't matter if they smell nice, if they look pretty, it doesn't matter. This is the time when you are around all the chemicals, so please, gloves, wear them, put them on. mask, please wear one. A proper mask as well, not those bullshit things that you've been wearing for the last 2 years. They don't work. Even a 3M dust mask with the small filter at the front, great for polishing, they will not work for coatings. You need a proper minimum half face mask with interchangeable vapour filters. They are graded with a colour scheme. They will tell you which vapours they protect you against. If you're unsure what you need, speak to the manufacturer, the reseller, the person that brands the product, whatever you want to call them. Speak to the people that provide the product. They should be able to provide you with the things that you need to protect yourself from. If they tell you it doesn't matter, they are either lying or they don't understand. Please take this part seriously. All day long you are going to be over a minimum of one surface. You might just be coating the paint, but there is a high probability that you're also going to be coating maybe the glass, the trim, the wheels. You're potentially going to be inside the car doing the leather. And all of that's going to be in a small space, probably a garage or a unit, a studio. All of those solvents, all of those evaporating, nasty things are going to be filling and saturating the air, and you're breathing that. It's soaking in through your skin, it's soaking in through your eyes. Take this part seriously. Handling those products, they can cause nerve damage. It's not just like a skin rash that you could have irreplicable nerve damage, eyesight problems, respiratory issues. Take this part seriously, please. I will hopefully have found the mask that I use and flashed it up as we've been having this conversation. There are two types you can have. You can have a half face mask, which will usually have a couple of filters or one filter on the front that you can remove and replace every so often. Again, follow manufacturer instructions. Or you could get a full face mask, looks like like something a fireman would wear. That might sound extreme, but again, if you're doing this all the time, often, you're around these things constantly, maybe there is something to be said for wearing something that seals your whole face and protects your eyes as well. But it must be able to carry proper vapour filters. There's different grades. They are usually identified through colour systems. Again, I will hopefully have found those and flashed those up on the screen as we're speaking. But just do it. It's a day or it's part of a day. It's a small amount of time. It's as easy to put them on as it is to make excuses afterwards. So just do it. Just do it. You are important. You matter no matter what somebody shouts at you out the window when you drive down the road. You matter. Just do it. Just do it. Okay, and so concludes the last video. But it isn't the last video because I intend to make one further video. It's perhaps won't be perceived as important as some of them that have been passed. What I want to make is just a little troubleshooting video. So the type of things that even when you adhere to all of the little tidbits that I'll give you, could go wrong, might go wrong, things that even happen to me today, and I perhaps coat 2 or 3 vehicles a week sometimes. Stuff happens, right? And if it can happen, it will happen. So just little troubleshooting things, regular common fixes that you can use, and perhaps weird alternative, I would have never have thought about that, solutions that may fix the problem that you've had. This one was a lot longer than the others, and it will certainly be a lot longer than the final one, but I wanted to get all of these things covered because I think these things will be invaluable for you. So again, thank you very much. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you stayed with me for that super secret, super important tip at the end. Thanks everybody that's returning, like, share, subscribe, all of that nonsense. You're grown adults, you'll do what you need to do. But I'd love to make more videos like this. The reason this one has taken me a little bit of time to get out is I'm just super busy at work. Real life gets in the way sometimes. The more followers that I have, the more obvious it is to me to dedicate the time to do these things, because they can take time sometimes. So I appreciate all of the interactions, the comments, the shares, the likes, all of that stuff. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you so much. Let me know in the comments if there's anything that you want to hear, you want to see, and I will be back with the troubleshooting video as quickly as I can be. Thank you.